Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here, and today I will be featuring a blue-white tempo deck featuring Grafted Identity. The link in the list is in the description below. I'm going to talk about the plan of the deck, and then we'll play a couple of games. So, let's go. Really what this deck focuses on, and we featured another deck with Grafted Identity very recently, is this card, right? So as an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature, and then you control enchanted creature, and the creature gets +1/+1. So first we can cheat this out with Owl, which is a very, very good thing to do. But because we have so many token creators in this deck, from Adeline to Wedding Announcement and Resolute Reinforcements, the downside of sacrificing a creature isn't really that obvious, right? It's something that like we don't have to work very hard for, because a lot of times you're going to have extra tokens to do it. And why Grafted Identity is so good right now is there are a lot of big creatures floating around in Standard right now. And being able to steal something is just really, really, really powerful. Specifically when it doesn't, impact you that much to do that. Now, on the flip side of this deck, right, we have a lot of things with Flash. We have the Wandering Emperor, Pact of Negotiations, Resolute Reinforcements, Make Disappear, Silver Scrutiny, Fateful Absence, and March, right? That's a lot of stuff, and none of that is, like, particularly powerful. But what that is going to allow us to do is, the first couple turns of the game, right, we can hold up our counter magic to make sure our opponent doesn't do anything really that bad if, that's what we want to do. And then maybe at the end of their turn, we can, cast a Resolute Reinforcements to add some pressure and then start attacking. And then when our opponent plays bigger things later in the game, we can either choose to counter them or take control of it with Grafted Identity. And that's kind of the basic general idea of the deck. So let's go play some games and see how it works. Also, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, and subscribe. That's a great way to help support me and this channel. If you have any deck suggestions, please let me know. I am always looking for more things to play. And I have a Twitch if you want to watch me play live Magic. And I have a Metafy if you're interested in coaching. Those links are down below. Now, thank you for watching, and let's play some games. Okay, so we have a tap land turn 1, which, if we're gonna ever do it, we want to have it tap turn 1, right? Because we don't have anything to cast turn 1. And then we can choose to either Dennick or keep up the Resolute Reinforcements. I'm just gonna go with Dennick just because we don't have any counter magic to really bluff, and I'd rather get the Dennick out now while we have to. Like, we can hold up Resolute Reinforcements and the Wandering Emperor later. Then I'm going to cast Adeline, and we attack. And our opponent's in a really, really rough spot right now. Because any creature they cast, we can Grafted Identity. And really, if we don't want a Grafted Identity, we're applying so much pressure. Right now, we are also Liliana proof. We're even Meat Hook proof to a certain extent. So, we're just in a really, really good spot here. And we'll see what our opponent wants to do now. Probably wants to kill the Adeline if they can with an Infernal Grasp. Cut down can only target Dennick. So, like, I think we're in a pretty good spot. Grafted Identity is also allows us to take control of an opponent's Sheoldred, which is really, really important in Standard right now. Sheoldred is seen everywhere, right? And not a lot of decks can really deal with her in a very efficient way. And Grafted Identity is amazing for that. So if our opponent goes land Sheoldred, that would be not particularly wonderful. We can also choose to counter the Sheoldred, but I don't know if that's something I'd want to do. But we'll see. Ooh, our opponent didn't do anything, so I'm just gonna Resolute Reinforcements here then. And then we'll attack. I wonder what our opponent has now in hand. Now, we have multiple Grafted Identities, and that is something that can happen. So one of the problems with this deck that I found is you can sometimes gum up your hand with Grafted Identities, and while it is a powerful card, it is also a very situationally powerful card, right? If our opponent doesn't really cast a lot of creatures, what is Grafted Identity doing for us, right? It's just sitting in our hand until maybe our opponent has a board wipe or a board clear, and then we're very, very sad. So now, again, we're waiting. We do have the Make Disappear to maybe stop a big meat hook. A Graveyard Trespasser. Okay. That gets rid of the Dennick, though, which is a little bad. So we're gonna Wandering Emperor here. We can probably make a 2/2. That we can give first strike and attack. We will still have the Make Disappear up. And Graveyard Trespasser is a very, very good thing against the Grafted Identity, while we still have to discard a card, right? We have to discard a card to target the Graveyard Trespasser and sacrifice a creature. And that's a lot to have to deal with. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it's something like we kind of want to... We'd rather not, right? Yeah, and this is what I was a little bit afraid of. I don't think we Make Disappear yet. Again, I think we want to wait and maybe try and steal a Shieldred. And now our opponent has a really big graveyard glutton. Yeah, so this is what we really needed to do in save 4. Now we would love another counter spell, right? Otherwise, we're just gonna literally be stuck with Grafted Identities in our hand. If our opponent plays another Invoke Despair, we'll be in a very bad spot. So we're gonna chump here. Alright, we will exile that, discarding the planes in our hand, which isn't going to do much. And then we attack for 2. Now, if our opponent does have another Invoke Despair, that is very unfortunate, right? But it's also not the end of the world. Again, the Graveyard Gluttons are really, really, really messing us up, though. Because I don't think I want to Grafted Identity it. Maybe if we draw another land, I will. Because we can easily throw away the land. Oh, I guess it's really not the end of the world. Wedding Announcement, though, is a card... And then we won't do anything here. Is a card I don't want to discard. 4. So our opponent has 6 cards in hand. Or 6 mana with 3 cards in hand. Which is a lot of cards in hand. A lot of cards in hand. And a Meat Hook for 2 would be really, really bad. Liliana's not that bad, and Invoke would be pretty terrible. The only really good thing about this entire situation, though, right, is our opponent is at 11, we're at 25, so we have a lot of life to play with, and we do have a lot of stuff going on, so I'm not too worried. It's just this Graveyard Glutton is, you know, proving to be a very big problem. Blade of the Oni. Interesting. The Menace and Ward. I think we'll double block here. So what we'll do then, I think, is we can make a 2/2. We can Grafted Identity. And then I think we can discard a Wandering Emperor, or do we want another wedding announcement? I think we want another wedding announcement. Now, our opponent can reconfigure to remove this, but that costs 4 mana to remove the reconfigure, which is a lot. And that means our opponent can't really hook away the Graveyard Glutton. If our opponent invokes Despair, we get to sacrifice the Glutton and the Grafted Identity and the Wandering Emperor. So we still have a lot of stuff going on the battlefield. Tenacious Underdog, okay. Alright, and our opponent's doing that. So, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what we can do now is Grafted. We can... Is there... Alright, there is a creature in the graveyard. So 5, 6, 7, 8. If we create a 2/2 with the Wandering Emperor, we can then Grafted Identity, targeting the underdog, sacrificing our token. And then we get to attack, exile our Resolute Reinforcements, and that should be game. GG. So this is, like, not a particularly great hand. We don't have anything, any counter magic, anything to do on turn 2. So I probably should mulligan, but as I always say, oh well. Adeline is very, very powerful, and we do have Ow. So, you know, there are worse things that could happen, right? Our opponent is mono red, a rabbit battery here, which is a pretty big... Oh, our opponent, interesting. So we really want another land, and we got it, because the Wandering Emperor is just really, really good in these matchups. Being able to exile a threat and gain life is just such a huge value. And Adeline is also good against the mono red decks, right? Because it's very, very likely that your opponent cannot kill her with, you know, one removal spell, right? Oh, another Ancestral Anger. That's a lot of damage. We will block here. Take 4. And go. And so now Wandering Emperor can kill... Doesn't need to kill Phoenix Chick. Maybe. Lightning striking me. Okay. Alright, let's Wandering Emperor to see what we can get here. This is... I think I want to get rid of the Phoenix Chick right away. Just because we can't block it. And then I want to get rid of the Rabbit Battery. Because we don't want to give anything else haste that we don't need to have haste.
Remember your training.
We're going to draw here. We are tapping out, which I don't know if I like. I liked it enough. GG. Okay. Now, this one, we have stuff to do on turn 2, but we don't have anything that we're, you know, playing towards. And that can be a little... And also, we do need lands. So we do have a Dennick, and then we can keep up Make Disappear if we don't draw land, which is okay. We also have other things to do, right? But we also are taking damage from our Adarkar Wastes, which is not inconsequential. And we will be taking damage, a lot of damage over the next couple turns. If we draw another land, though, we're going to Wedding Announcement on our 3rd turn, right? Which I think is fine. And then on our 4th turn, if we have a land, we can make disappear and keep up Resolute Reinforcements and Fateful Absence. There's a lot of stuff we can do. This is not great, though. If we actually had another land that we could, you know, work with Adeline at, that would be great. Do I want to attack, though? I don't know. This is like a slight problem with this deck, or difficulty, is once the value of your opponent's stuff is on the board, it's a little hard to interact with. And Fable of the Mirror Breaker is just a really, really, really powerful card. And it's gonna be something that, you know, it just provides a lot of value, and we can't really interact with it in a very positive way. Now our opponent's gonna use the token and the Blood Tithe Harvester to kill our Dennick, which is actually very, very good for us. And a Corpse Appraiser. Ouch. If we had the Dennick still out on the battlefield, right, our opponent cannot use Corpse Appraiser. And our opponent threw away a Kiki Jiki, or Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Literally did not want that to happen, though. So we'll cast this Dennick. And then we'll say go. We are a little... how do you say... short on white mana, right? So we're going to be taking a lot of damage from the Adarkar Wastes. At least we do have a Make Disappear to stop what potentially what our opponent is doing, but one of the problems with Make Disappear too is that our opponent has 6 mana available. That is a lot of mana. Our opponent does have an Invoke Despair, and thankfully, we get to counter it. Which is really, really good, actually. Ooh, now we have a Grafted Identity. Ooh. Interesting. We can Grafted Identity the Kiki Jiki. Let's go for it. Let's see what happens here. We don't really have a lot of cool stuff to copy with it. We can do it on a Resolute Reinforcements, which isn't irrelevant, right? And if it is nothing else, it is a 4/4 creature. Our opponent can Meat Hook. Our opponent does have 6 mana to Meat Hook everything away. But, you know, that's fine. Okay. We will get rid of... I think we do Dennick it back. Use up all of our mana while we can. Does this Dennick not have lifelink? It does not. And our opponent had another Invoke, and that's not good for us. We don't want our opponent gaining a lot of life, or drawing cards, and just getting so much value. And we also would like to be drawing the planes. Fieldred is terrible for us, but we do have a Fateful Absence to get rid of it. But we have to end the game very, very quickly here, right? Because Because our opponent just... We're at 9, and our opponent hasn't me Hook Massacre out. We're taking damage from the Adarkar Wastes over time. So it's not a good time for anyone involved, honestly. What is our opponent gonna do here? That's very interesting. I know the idea behind Volting Surging there, but if you're at 25 life and we're only at 8, it might just be like behoove you to maybe like save it for potentially other bigger target, but I guess doing it now, it does cut our clock like in half, right? Literally getting only blue sources is very, very bad. So very, very bad. So, and this happens sometimes when you're playing 2-color decks, right? Things don't always work out as well as you would like them to. And that's okay. Invoke Despair. What a shame that our opponent, like, didn't have some mana. Alright, there we go. We literally have to go down to 3 life here to cast the Adeline. We just have to hope our opponent has nothing in hand. It's just what we have to do. Or maybe just 3 more Make Disappears. Cut down, of course. Adeline can only be cut down if it's the only creature on the battlefield. Oh. That is very interesting. Tapping out. We should have not done that. But that's okay. Opponent draws a card. What we're gonna do is kick the Protect the Negotiators, because how we win, everyone, is our opponent having nothing in hand, right? Nothing in hand. Us then grafting identitying the Shieldred. And our opponent then not tapping Shieldred in response with the Reckoner Bankbuster. Our opponent should have drew a card first, then crewed the Bankbuster, because now our opponent can't draw a card because it has Summoning Sickness. One of the weird things with Reckoner Bankbuster is how you can make it a vehicle to block, but if it's the first turn to enter the battlefield, well... If our opponent literally doesn't have anything, though, we might be okay. I can't imagine. Opponent would need... It was 2 lands in the graveyard, so maybe it's another land in hand. Our opponent could have Infernal Grasped their own Corpse Appraisal to kill us. by the way. So I guess we can be a little happy about that. Just a very, very unfortunate series of events for us. We needed to draw just a little better earlier on by like getting a planes, and our opponent to just not be drawing all of this good stuff, right? It's not over yet, but it's pretty over. And that's okay. Alright, yeah, now our opponent won because of the Make Disappear, sacking the creature and triggering the Meat Hook Massacre. So, GG. We will decline to pay. Well, thank you for watching me play some Grafted Identity tempo in Standard. This deck was really, really good. You know, I just want to make a quick aside. Just because you win games or doesn't mean a deck is good. Just because you lose games doesn't mean a deck is bad, right? That last game we lost for a lot of different reasons, and the deck held out fairly well for how badly things went, right? But I think this deck is really, really good right now in this metagame. I think Grafted Identity, with a lot of token makers like this deck has, is really, really well positioned. It can really just destroy or come out. It doesn't come out of nowhere, right? Because it's a 4-mana sorcery. But it can really just pull the rug right out of from under an opponent and just completely change the landscape of the game by stealing a big Shieldred or even a big Titan of Industry. You know, just it's a lot to handle, right? And then it also just, you know, can play the counterspell game, and, you know, Wedding Announcement and Adeline are just very, very powerful cards in their own right, and can just, you know, you don't even have to really have the tempo Grafted Identity plan. Sometimes you can just be like a white aggro deck, and that can be good enough. So yeah, I would recommend playing around with this deck. It's also a very, very different playstyle from a lot of the other decks in Standard right now, and I think this could appeal to a very specific portion of players. So I would recommend it if you think this is the type of deck for you. With all that being said, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. Great way to help support me and my channel. Follow me at Twitch at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve. You know, I do coaching at my Medify. And yeah, regardless, I hope this video was entertaining, or at least you learned a thing or two. And thank you for watching. Hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. Bye.